Old School Lane Casual Chats is brought to you by the members of oldschoollane.blogspot.com and is associated with manicexpression.webs.com, the home of Breck's blogs, racing game lover, horror genre expert, and the defender of cats. Remember, cats are not evil, they're just misunderstood. Welcome aboard to Casual Chats episode number 3. I am Patricia.
Hi.
Hey, who are you?
You really don't know?
No, you sound familiar, but I can't tell by the giant hoodie in the background that you're wearing. Tell everybody, who are you?
Well, I'm David, but you probably know me better on the sites as Breck Club 85, or the guy who really, really liked Cabin in the Woods.
There you go. I remember you, yeah. What did you do with Kevin? Isn't Kevin supposed to be the usual guy around here for for casual chats? What did you do with him?
I think the Paradox got him this time.
Oh, no, the Paradox got him. He's probably there with Mr. Smooth and Jockerly 77. Anyway, so welcome aboard, David. How's it going?
Oh, I'm fine, Patricia.
Great. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Sly series, because Sly 4, Thieves in Time, is coming out next year, and the both of us are really huge Sly fans, so what better way to talk about it right before it starts coming out? So how did you get first introduced to the Sly series, David?
Well, it was back when the original game came out in 2002. It was actually my older brother who picked up the first game. I watched him play it, and eventually, like I do with all his video games, I started to play it for myself. And I really liked the gameplay, and I liked how there was, for a platformer, there was a story going on.
Yeah, definitely. As for me, I kind of was introduced to this game series last, because around the 2000s, when the PlayStation 2 was coming out, you had the big contenders. You had Jak and Daxter, and you had Ratchet and Clank. So I was more into playing those games. And then when I played Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal, there was actually a code that you can actually enter in order for you to play a demo of Sly 2. And then when I played Sly 2, I was immediately hooked. I picked up the first game, and then as soon as I played that, I continued with the second and the third game, and I became immediately hooked.
For me, Sly is to the PS2 what Spyro the Dragon was to the PS1.
I guess you could say that, with a game that involves, well, they're completely different. You see, this Spyro was involved with collecting items, kind of like what Banjo-Kazooie was, or Donkey Kong 64, any of those platformers that were hugely popular at the time. So you had something like that, and obviously, you had Ratchet and Clank, and you had Jak and Daxter, which were kind of like those platformers, kind of like the last of their kind. Today, you don't see those kind of platformers anymore, as far as I know.
The reason it reminded me of Spyro is the fact that in both cases they were trilogies, but also like structurally the third game in each series both involved like getting a larger cast of playable characters and more focus on the past of the main cast.
Well, that is true, yeah, I guess you could say that. And a very interesting thing to note that Sucker Punch, this was their second game in the series. The very first game that they released was in 1999 called Rocket Robots on Wheels. Have you ever played that game or ever heard of it?
Never heard of it until just now.
Well, it's basically a game in which you're like this little robot and you're creating like this amusement park-like thing and you're going around collecting stuff, and it has like a really unique twist to it. It's basically like a cult classic game on the Nintendo 64. That was their first game, and then afterwards they created Sly a few years later.
Interesting.
Yeah, but given to that, let's talk about the very first Sly game, Sly Cooper and the Thieves Raccoonus, in which it involves with Sly trying to get the Thieves Raccoonus, in which it involves with his ancestors. So it was a very interesting game, the way it combined platforming with stealth. I'd never seen anything like that, because You had games like Splinter Cell and Metal Gear Solid, in which it was involved with stealth, in which it was very cinematic and very action-packed. But then when you have a game like Sly combining with that, and then you have like a fun story to go along with it, it was something really original.
I like to call the Sly games as Metal Gear Solid for kids.
There you go. Yeah, I guess you could say that. Instead of a whole bunch of exposition, and then afterwards you have to go along through the entire games. Do you have to play all the other games in order for you to get the Sly games? Or you can just pick up and play either one, do you think?
Well, going into the sequels, a little knowledge of the past makes the characters more easy to understand, and the relationships that develop over the course of the series. And also, you kind of need to play 2 to understand why the characters are where they are at the beginning of 3.
So yeah, just like in Metal Gear Solid, you do have to play the other games in order for you to understand the stories. So you had a lot of the characters. You had Sly, you had Murray, you had Bentley, you had Carmelita Fox, you had Clockwork, who was the villain. Clockwork was a really interesting villain because he was the one responsible for killing Sly's father and when he was very young. So it's kind of like a little interesting setup to what would be a really interesting character, don't you think?
Yeah, and although he's only the villain of the first game, he does still have very much a presence in the second.
Yeah, definitely. When they're trying to find the parts. And we have a very interesting love-hate relationship with Sly and Carmelita. What do you think of Carmelita? Because when it comes to female protagonists or female characters in video games, I think that around this point they were starting to become more fleshed out. You had characters such as Samus and Lara Croft at the time, and then having a character like Carmelita was kind of interesting to see, but then again, for some people, it might be just a really basic love interest.
Well, with Carmelita, the only thing that really bothered me was the fact that she could not have the same voice actress for more than one game.
Oh, I know. Oh my god, I completely agree with you. It is so inconsistent.
She goes from Spanish sounding in the first to completely American in the second to a different kind of Spanish back in the third.
Yes, and the fourth one, I don't know what the fourth one's going to be about. I know Grey Delisle is going to be voicing Carmelita in the fourth game, and who knows what she's going to sound like, but oh my god, I completely understand. I felt the same way when they changed the voice of Kira in Jak 3. It was like completely different, and yeah, I mean, come on. If I was a minor character, I would completely just ignore that. But you have somebody like Carmelita who's constantly chasing after Sly, and who's supposed to be the love interest. Why do you have to constantly change the voice actresses? Seriously.
Maybe they just went on to different projects, but I guess as for the character herself, I do like how, well, since she's a cop, she may be against Sly, but she's never actually a villain. And always in all the games, she ends up siding with the gang near the end.
Right. Sort of like a mixture good cop, bad cop sort of thing, I would guess. So some of the gameplay that was really interesting was some of the levels that you went to and all the different places that you get to go to, trying to sneak around and trying to prevent yourself from being captured by the henchmen, and trying to get the coins and trying to get like the little power-ups in order for you to get the gadgets. What were your favorite gadgets in the game?
From what I can remember, since I admittedly didn't use those a lot unless they were absolutely necessary.
Yeah, I didn't use those either because they were expensive.
I did like the paraglider for Sly you could get into sequels.
Yeah,
and
those
some of the advanced bombs that Bentley can get.
Yeah, definitely, because when you start playing as Bentley, he starts off with like this little pea shooter like arrow that it just stuns the enemies to sleep, but as time, and then you had to use the bombs, but then as time goes on you get to expand the bombs, which really helped a lot. So yeah, there were a lot of different varieties of gameplay besides the stealth and the platforming. There was also like the rail shooting when you get to shoot around like things like the ship from Sly 3. It was nice for them to start mixing it up a little bit and keep it from getting stale.
And also, I think one thing that helped the Sly series is that each installment, even by platformer standards, had fairly decent stories.
Yeah, they did. One of the most important things nowadays with video games, besides the graphics and the gameplay, is the story. Back then, video games were just about the gameplay, but as time went on, they had a really good quality to them in which they're almost like movies. So at the time, it was starting to slowly be brought out in which it can be portrayed as good story structure. So at least Sly had a good attempt in doing that, especially when we got to connect with each and every one of the characters.
I even said in a previous blog that I think the second Sly game is probably one of the darkest platformers ever made.
Next to Jak 2, definitely. Because Jak 1 starts off really, really happy. It was really bright and colorful. And then all of a sudden, when Jak 2 comes along, it was like a dystopian, bleak, dark future. And it introduces guns, and it was almost like a Grand Theft Auto sort of thing. So with Sly, you kind of feel that presence to it. And then as time went on, it did get progressively darker. And then around the third game, it started getting a little bit lighter with the introduction of the other characters. The other characters, I really like Dimitri. I know that for some people, for Sly 2, you know, he was kind of like a very goofy sort of character, but I kind of grew to love him as time went on. I think around the third game.
Yeah, because in the second game, he was the first boss, so he's taken out of the story pretty quickly. But in the third game, he's just, because he basically talks in English he learned through 70s videos.
Yes, I remember that. What was the name of the female character in Sly 3 who was kind of like the female version of Bentley? What was her name again?
Female version of Bentley?
Yeah, she was like the geeky girl with the glasses.
Penelope.
Yeah, there you go, Penelope. I really wanted to know a lot more of her. She was really interesting. She had like the cool little gadget, but I just wish that she would have been brought out more instead of just being a female version of Bentley. It's kind of like how I feel about in Alvin and the Chipmunks, in which the Chipettes are just basically the female versions of the Chipmunks. I kind of hate that cliche, in my opinion.
Well, we can assume there's hope for Sly 4, because the teaser trailers did feature Dimitri, so we might see Penelope and the others again.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. That would be really nice if we can be able to flesh them out more. So, out of the trilogy, which is your favorite?
It's kind of a close call. I mean, I'd maybe say 2. It's maybe between 2 and 3. I'd have to give it slightly to 2 more.
I agree. I do like 2 way better. I find it to be a much better story. Has a lot more variety going on. Has a lot more of the power-ups and the gadgets, and it's basically a lot of fun for me. I don't have.
I did like how Sly 3 wrapped up the story.
Yes, I did enjoy that, because with some games they need, some games in which they have to continue on and on for it to cash in the franchise. So I'm glad that they wrapped it up nice and tight. As opposed to other games in which they kind of leave it in a cliffhanger.
And the one thing I can appreciate about the stories of the Sly games is that in each one they manage to work in plot twists.
Yeah, they do. They certainly do. And when it comes to that, when you're playing a game very basic, it's always nice to get thrown in on something completely different and have a little bit of a shock factor. What would you say is your favorite?
Favorite what?
Plot twist.
Well, are we allowed to say spoilers?
Well, maybe not. Maybe just like a tiny little insert.
I'll say it in a vague phrasing. My favorite twist is finding out who the real villain in 2 is.
Ah, yes, I remember that one. I didn't expect that one either, I'll just tell you that. Although, the ending to Sly 1, I really wanted to know about, the Thieves Raccoonus, but then it cut off really quickly. It was kind of a shame for me, to tell you the truth, because working hard the entire time and wanting to know more information about it, that was kind of a disappointment, in my opinion.
So, what was besides the main villains, or maybe including the main villains, who are your favorite bad guys throughout all 3 games?
Oh, man. Jeez, that's really tough. I have to say Clockwork. Clockwork has a really good connection with why Sly wants to go after him in the first place, and I'm really hoping that he shows up in Sly 4.
I'm thinking later in this podcast we should just do Sly 4 speculation.
Or maybe we can talk about what we want to see in a Sly 4 game.
Okay. Let's see,
Um, yeah.
among the more minor villains, I liked General Sal from the third one.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Yeah. You don't get to see him as much though.
Yeah,
I
because in Sly 3, the levels were very much on an episodic basis, so even the final villain, Dr. M, is only in the final level.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that's why for some people, Sly 3 is a little bit. And I think when it comes to episodic, I think that's why for some people Sly 3 isn't as good as Sly 2 because with the other Sly games, you knew who the villain was. Well, the exception of 2 when it throws you in a plot twist. But with the other games, it's like you play this one level and then you forget about it and then you go on to the next thing.
And actually, the funny thing is, even when we bring up 2, the twist in question, the character who turns out to be the bad guy, we more or less understand that this character is a villain, but it's the ending where we see just how badly of a villain they really are.
Yeah, that is true. So let's talk about okay. So afterwards, after the Sly games were all finished, and then the PS3 came out, we had Infamous. Have you played Infamous?
No, I'm afraid.
Me neither. I mean, I played a little bit of it, and it seemed okay, but I never really got into it. It seemed like a really cool game. But did you think that the Sly series could have continued on in the PS3, similar to when Insomniac Games decided to continue on the Ratchet and Clank series?
I figured they could have. I mean, if there's the technological possibilities would open up more. And even though Sly 3 does have end on a pretty conclusive note, it didn't end it on a way that says there can't be more games.
Yeah, there could have been more possibilities. They could have been maybe a new adventure, or maybe something else to steal, or new villains.
Or or Sly Team Racing.
Uh, Sly Team Racing. That would have been an interesting one. Maybe we can have like those little spy buggies just driving around and all over Paris and all over the places that the games were taking place in. That'll be kind of interesting. Kind of like what the way Crash Team Racing was and Jack X Combat Race. That would have been interesting. But I don't know. Do you think that Sucker Punch would have done a racing game similar to what Naughty Dog does with their racing games?
It would have been cool to see them try.
Yeah, it would have been cool. I think that Sly would have had a really good hit on the PS3. I mean, I know that as time goes on, some genres of games come and go. You have things like adventure games dying and then coming back with the reboot of the Monkey Island games. And then you have things like platformers coming and going. And then you have new, fresh ideas like Bastion and Limbo and all those other kind of games. I guess it depends on if you bring something new to the table while at the same time creating a familiarity to it. I think that people will start getting into it again. I just feel that there's just so much of an overblown with first person shooters. I'm sorry, but I really can't stand it too much.
I mean, I don't play first person shooters, but the ones I do, I like them. And I mean, let's face it, the reason they get made so much is because they make money. That's why there are so many music games.
Yeah, and
that's why the NES was dominated with crappy platformers, because there were good platformers that made money.
Yeah, I'm hoping that pretty soon it'll crash and burn just like the same way that the music genre and the platformer genre that NES did. Pretty soon there's going to be so many first-person shooters. We're going to see Call of Duty Black Ops 25 taking place between Iraq and Afghanistan, and same concept over and over again, and then afterwards it just crashes and burns.
Though I would like to see a first-person shooter that stars platformer game characters.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting idea, because there are some characters that did shoot guns, like Jack, for example. Sly, maybe Sly, I don't know about Sly using a gun. I mean, maybe he could use one of his power-ups or one of his gadgets. That could be a possibility.
I mean, Sly is in PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale.
Ah, yes, that's right. I haven't played that game. I played the demo of it, and what I found, it's sort of like Brawl, but not really. It's a little bit finicky, and it just, the rules are a little bit odd. It's not something that I'm used to.
Though I hear most people who play it like it. That's from what I've heard.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Ryan McCarthy actually gave a review on it, so maybe sometime sooner or later I'll take a look into it. But other than that, I don't think it's for me.
Okay.
All right, so okay, we got that out of the way. So let's talk about Sly 4. So now that we have a different company who's going to be involved with it, the same company who was involved with releasing the HD collection, let's talk about some of the things that we want to see in the new game.
This one, for me, it's not so much something I'm wanting, but something I'm wondering is that since the story is going to be about time travel, do you think they're going to bring back Clockwork?
I'm hoping so. That would be a really good idea. Maybe it can be something like, he goes back in time at one point of the game, and maybe he'll try to save Sly's father and, meet up with the other ancestors.
Because I'm thinking they might end up pulling a 2 where throughout most of the game it looks like it's going to be Clockwork, but then it turns out to be somebody else.
That could be, that's a really interesting one. That could be a really good idea. Another thing that I would really want to see is, let's not have the items, the gadgets, and the power-ups, let's not have them as expensive, because when collecting some of the power-ups, you have to pay with all the collectibles that you need to find, and some of them are really hard to find, and they can be expensive. Just make it a little bit more cheaper.
Yeah, because from what we've seen in the demos that have been released, is that the gameplay and battle system will follow the sequels example, not the originals.
Yeah. Another one that I would like change, obviously, for the characters, if there's going to be the older characters from the Sly games or the newer characters or anything like that, I want them to be fleshed out more. That would be really cool, because with the Sly series, you do get to know a lot of the main characters, but when it comes to the side characters, you don't get to know them as much. They go too quickly.
Okay, and another thing I'm looking forward to what's going to go down is the development of Sly and Carmelita's relationship, because since we're going into another game and another seeming story, that means something that happened at the end of 3 Sly is going to have to tell the truth on.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just hoping that they don't completely forget about it.
Like maybe by the end of the game, the final epilogue will have Carmelita saying, "Hey, I'm pregnant."
Yes, that'll be really nice to give to kids. It'll teach them the birds and the bees while holding a controller. It's more subtle than Leisure Suit Larry. Well, they did this in Star Fox, so, why not? Let's have it for Sly. Another one, definitely. I think the music was a really nice touch to the games. Let's have more of that kind of style of music, very dark edge film noir sort of style with the new game. I'm just hoping that they don't have the stupid PlayStation Move gimmicks like they had with the HD collection. Those were pretty stupid.
I haven't played the HD collection, so I want to know how those worked.
I tried a demo of it when I was in Best Buy, and they do not work at all. They suck. But the graphics look, really nice. 1080 HD looks pretty colorful. But, it still looks like a PlayStation 2 game, but with a nice coat of paint. Similar to how I feel with the other HD collection games. But yeah, no PlayStation Move, please. I'm begging. I'm begging you.
So, when you get Sly 4, are you going to buy it for the PS3 or the PS Vita?
PS3, definitely. It's not that I don't like the PS Vita. It's just that the controls, you just wish you had a dual analog stick.
Well, I'm used to... Have you played any of the Kingdom Hearts games?
I played the first one.
Well, I had the first 2 on the PS2, and I got used to the controllers, and I played Birth by Sleep for the PSP, and I got used to the difference. I can adapt.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's like I'm a big kart racer collector, and back on the PS1, there was a Final Fantasy kart racing game where normally on the PlayStation, the acceleration button was X. In Chocobo Racing, the acceleration button was square, and I got used to that.
Well, that's not too bad. If it was something, really odd, like the accelerator button was triangle or the L2, then that would be odd. Yeah, but that's not too difficult.
Yeah.
Should we wrap this up?
Well, maybe just like one more thing I thought we didn't bring up is from the original three, what were your favorite levels?
Let's see. My favorite levels. Well, let's see. From the first game, I really enjoyed just the first sequence in which you get introduced to what you were doing, just sneaking around in each building and trying to piece together all the parts of the story and trying to find out clues to where the Thieves Raccoonus was. And the second game, where you get to sneak inside into Dimitri's club, that's actually the one that I played in the demo, and it really stuck to me. And I really enjoyed playing that whenever I pick up Sly 2. Sly 3, I really like the boss battles. The boss battles were really, really fun.
Like, usually for a platformer game, my favorite part of it is the boss battles, and Sly does not disappoint in that category.
Definitely not. Each boss battle is very unique, very different, and it takes a lot of time in order for you to find out how to defeat them.
For my favorite levels, from the second game, I really like the final world, the airship.
Oh, yeah.
And also, from the third game, I like the China level, mainly for the story going on between Sly and one of the former members of the gang that killed his folks.
Yeah, I think though the pirate level is my favorite on Sly 3.
I'm just surprised, like, after pretty much every other level in the series is set in a real location, they just give us a pirate town.
Yes, I know. Welcome over to the 14th century, where, well, I mean, we're not talking about, like, modern-day pirates in which they loot ships. We're talking about, like...
Jack Sparrow pirates.
There you go, Jack Sparrow, Pirates of the Caribbean pirates.
And that's one thing we kind of forgot to mention, is just that for the dialogue, these games are pretty humor-filled.
Yeah, a lot of platformers back in the PS2 had that kind of humor feel. It's the kind of humor that's a bit corny, but you enjoy it just because it's funny. Ratchet and Clank had that. Jak and Daxter had that. Sly definitely has that. There's so many moments in which I just can't help but laugh.
It's like, my favorite was in the third game when Bentley has the grapple cam, which comes with distractions. It's just like the most generic insults imaginable. Hey, you, person with low self-esteem.
I really enjoy the way that Murray would be able to just flaunt himself off just because of his size. It's like, the Murray will come and defeat all of you. The Murray will come and destroy this and that. And then there was the first scene and then the first level of Sly 2 in which they're at the museum. And then Bentley goes into the mic and he's like, attention all guards. This is the boss speaking. I just want to let you know that there is nothing going wrong. You're all doing a great job. Have a nice day. Who says something like that? If my boss were to say something like that, I would be suspicious.
That reminds me, I found this video on YouTube. It was the voice actors for Sly, Bentley, and Murray. It was something they did in 2011. It was basically a sketch on a radio show where they voiced their characters doing, like, they were robbing a KFC. I can link you that.
I've never seen that before. I gotta check that out.
Basically, it's like they're trying to steal the spices, and since this is something they completely scripted, not scripted, they just made up, they got a little more edgier with the humor. Like, Bentley tells Murray to go through the back door, but then Murray says only the front door's open. And then he says, then he goes up to the front door, Mr. KFC, give me your spices. And then when the robbery's botched, Sly says, Bentley, this isn't going right. What do we do now? And then Bentley says, I've actually been driving away for the past 2 minutes. I have a Scrabble tournament I need to attend. I just have to get going.
Oh my god, I gotta check that out. That sounds hilarious.
I'll link it to you after this.
Yeah, thank you. Alright, well, we've been going on for about a half hour talking about all this stuff. Is there anything you want to plug right before we sign off?
Well, I think my next blog on the site is going to be my top 8 favorite Christmas specials.
Ah, yes.
You can expect the Monk and Case Closed Christmas episodes to be on there.
Oh, Okay.
And plus, also one thing I meant to say in the forums, but I'll say it there too, but I'll say it here first is for the holiday video idea I mentioned on the forums. Try to whatever you do for it, try to have your video in by the 20th. So that's about it.
Great. So let's see. Something that is coming up is obviously more casual chats for me and Kevin. I'm going to be doing my top 10 or maybe top 12 because 12 Days of Christmas. Haha, clever. Top 12 Nickelodeon Christmas specials. And there's also finishing up with. I already finished the female and male role models. So now we're going to do the worst. I'm looking forward to that. Then afterwards, within the next few weeks, is Old Schooling's first anniversary. And then coming next year, I'm hoping that I'll get some time to do the Manic Expression variety show. And then there's also Nick Jukebox, which is basically a compilation of Nickelodeon songs from the 80s to today. So
is the Nickelodeon tribute in general still going on?
Yes, it is.
We're going to do the Catch Scratch crossover.
Yeah, I'm getting to that. It's just that I've been really busy with a whole bunch of other things, both work and personal, but we'll get to that pretty soon.
Understandable.
All right, so other than that, David, thank you so much for coming by. It was a lot of fun talking to you about Sly.
It was a lot of fun being here. Nice to talk with another fan.
Awesome. So if you guys want to check out David's work, you can go to manicexpression.webs.com and look into the blog session, and it's called Breck's Blogs. So until then, this is Patricia and David, and we hope to catch you around soon, so take care.